Welcome you to our Native American History Month presentation, part of the larger Viva Florida 500 celebration of the 500th year anniversary of the state of Florida. And today we have a couple of speakers and presenters with us. First off, Mr. Willie Johns of the Atati Key Museum from the Seminole tribe of Florida, and also Mr. John Griffin of the Black Seminoles. And so they have many things, and I'll just leave it.
At the other campus was about 30 minutes away, but I made it in 15. My name is Willie Johns, like I said, and I'm a Cow Creek Seminole, and a lot of my people, I'm from the Oconee, and I'm from the Wildcat clan. So today, the Seminoles, we still practice matrilineal, and we still have 8 clans here in Florida today. At the beginning, before Europeans, there was over 56 clans. So by the end of 3 wars, over a 50-year period, we have 8. And the rest, there's some in the Oklahoma territory, you know, that surrendered. So it's my ancestors that were they migrated into Florida. Our homeland is Alabama. Everybody's familiar with the Southeastern Conference. That's us. But that's our homeland, Southeastern United States, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, parts of North Carolina, South Carolina. A great domain of the Muskogee people in those days before the Europeans. So we made our living hunting, fishing the land, and just the life of riding, you know. Up until the Europeans kind of messed it up for the native guys, because all we did was hunt and fish. Kind of like some of you guys now, all you do is golf. So, but the Europeans came and they wanted to chop down the trees and open up the forests and plant crops. And so that kind of, you know, put a lot of work on everybody, right? So the fishing and the hunting trips are all out. But, you know, the Seminoles, I mean, they weren't Seminoles then, you know. We keep using that word Seminole, but it's not even our word. You know, it's a word that came to us by way of a Spanish word, Cimarron, and untamed. And eventually it landed on us, but we never really called ourselves a whole lot of them, unless we just called ourselves Muskogee. And but you'll see throughout history we're called all kinds of things, like Creeks. You know, where did that come from? Anybody know? You know, John Smith. He was a British agent that was doing a lot of trading with the Muskogee people, and he asked them, "Where'd you come from?" And they said, "Oh, we came down 5 creeks, and we came here in our canoes." So eventually, the Creek word stuck, and our people were trading for muskets, you know, and rifles. You know, when the Europeans came here, they made our lives so simple, you know, because all of a sudden we could lay our bow and arrows down, and we could pick up a musket, and we got really good with it. Now we're killing animals 100 yards away instead of sneaking up on a 30-yard shot with a bow and arrow. Now we're deep frying food in them big old pots, you know, like McDonald's French fries, you know. And we're just having a good old time, and then we wore a lot of skins and deer hides for our clothing, and then again, when the textile started to crank up here in the country, we started wearing cotton cloth. You know, here in Florida, he's got an example of his clothing of what you would have seen back in the late 1600s all the way up to 1830s. By the 1830s, everybody's down south. And guess what? It gets hot down there. I just came from there this morning, down in the Everglades, so it wasn't as cool as it probably was up here. Did y'all have any ice? No frost? Almost. But where I was, it was 60 degrees. It was pretty nice, you know, and so climates change, and we change with it. Our appetite, our food changes, you know, everything changes when we got down into the Everglades. That was our last holdout, you know, and so, you know, in the United States, they fight a revolutionary war against the British, and Creek people kind of sat back and enjoyed the scene, you know, watched the fight. And but the Cherokees didn't. The Cherokees took side. They took side with the Redcoats. If you've been to their museum, a lot of their museum is based upon English stuff that the king and queen gave them dishes, you know, and gorgets. You got gorget on? Yeah, he's got those fancy gorgets. We like those, you know. We like to dress up, and that's what that's all about. Gorget is a French word for neck protector, because if you're French, y'all were fond of attacking the castle. And when you attack the castle, you always protect your neck, because they got these little arrows, you know, and it bounces off. Protection. But when they brought them to America, it was a luxury item for chiefs, you know, because, like I said, we all like to look good, you know, and that's all it was all about. Just showing off. So by this time, late 1600s, there's already Seminoles here in Florida, all the way across from throughout this country here, and because cow keeper, and then Kukulusty, he was down over there on the near I-75, called Tunjati, the Red Land, and so there was creeks already established, already in here, and they were making their living as ranchers. So, you know, in our history, we always like to forget about the Spanish guys because of their brutality and their, you know, bringing in the diseases and wiping out a lot of the, you know, native tribes. But they did also do some other things well. As you know, they brought the horse here, and they brought cattle, they brought farm animals, and eventually we depend on those today. We still depend on farming and agriculture, and that's what they brought, the Spanish people, with their priests and Jesuits and what have you, you know, to tame the country. So we don't want to make light of that so much, but the native people took advantage of it when they came into Florida, especially the early Creeks, early Muskogees, because there's an important date that rolls around. You know, we already have fought one little war with Andy Jackson And, you know, he didn't hang around long enough for us to get our hands on him. He just snuck in and snuck out. But, you know, as a Native person, and I study a lot about different generals and his fortitude about what he thought and how he did things. Sometimes I wish our today's generals would have that kind of attitude, you know, and so they just, you know, seek and conquer, you know, and that's what Andy was all about, the land, the people. So when he became president, he passed a law in 1830 called the Indian Removal Act. And that sparked a whole different new way of life for us, in which we actually, you know, went to war with the United States over it. And that was the coming of the Second Seminole Wars. And what that meant by signing that treaty was that from Maine to Key West, everybody east of the Mississippi River had to go west. So we have Trail of Tears. We call ours, I don't know, we're doing a reenactment. We had one of our ancestors was, she was captured and she was kept at Egmont Key. And when she got on the schooner that was to take her to Indian Territory in Louisiana, a lot of the people got sick, so she got the captain to stop the boat and go and let some people go ashore. So she escaped. And we're reenacting that in December, and we're starting at Egmont Key. We just now discovered, I don't know why all of a sudden, these forts on the West Coast were more detrimental to Indians than the ones on the East Coast, like Fort Myers and Fort Brooks, because they were concentration camps, and they held Seminoles there, and to be taken to Indian Territory from those islands. And Egmont Key was one of the main hubs that they held Native people on. And so she made her escape. They said there was 12. One was killed and some surrendered, but at least 7 escaped. So in the first of December, we're doing a reenactment of that boat ride to St. Mark's. And it's our contribution to the 500 years the Seminole tribe. So if you have any questions, you know, feel free to pop up.
What is the date of that reenactment?
Ma'am?
What do you have the exact date of the reenactment yet?
The December 3rd. Same time as the National Finals Rodeo. I hate that.
Oh.
So, yes.
How much did the Seminoles intermingle with the tribes that were here when the Seminoles arrived?
Say that again.
Well, the Indians were in Florida before the Seminoles, I think. Tumaquana, not correct. Was there much intermingling between the two tribes or not?
Yes, I think so, heavily, because we obtained a map from the Hubble telescope, people, and it shows all the trails coming into Florida. And it appears that Creek people winters here in Florida. So if you think you're the first snowbird, you're wrong. Because it was the Creek people that came to Florida. Because in the South, in Alabama and Georgia, there was snow there this morning, I think. So they would have been, you know, came back to Florida. So I think there was a lot, you know, involved with the early guys. Yes?
What was the name of your ancestor, and she?
Holly Parker.
Holly Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And did she remain then in Florida on the loose, or did she?
She did. She stayed in Florida till she died in like 1940 something. You know, she was a very elderly lady. And I'm connected with her on my grandpa's side. But on my mom's side, I'm connected to Wildcat. So I got a lot of hostility in me. I have to be counseled all the time. See a psychologist. Yes.
How old was she when she escaped?
You know, the court's out on that, you know. I think she was pretty young. You know, probably a teenage girl. But we got to always remember, she wasn't the only one. But she's the only one that spoke up. Because there was 6 more that was with her, 6 other families still in our tribe today that is connected to that. But you know, a lot of people didn't say a heck of a whole lot, because that's our way. You know, we don't do all these memorials and, you know, Veterans Days. That's not within us. You know, when we do an act, we do our medicine, and then we're done with it. It's over with, and we go about our way. So, but she spoke up. It was written. Yes, sir.
I was just going to comment about Egmont Key. I've been there, and there's a Seminole cemetery right next to the lighthouse on Egmont Key, and there's a ferry service that runs seasonally from Fort DeSoto Park, and it's about $30 per person. You can take the ferry over to Egmont Key, and you go, you know, seashelling and tour the fortifications around the island. But there's a cemetery there, and there's a placard at the cemetery which lists there's about 5 or 6 burials of Seminoles that died there.
And Confederates, soldiers that died. It is. They have a contract, the state and the government has a contract every 7 years. They dredge, and then they put that dirt back on it. Because I've been there twice this summer, and the first time I went, it looked okay. The second time, I could really tell the difference, that the erosion was really taking. So, yes, ma'am. And so, you know, the tribe is called out. What do you want to do with it? You know, you got people buried there, you got a history there, you know, and our chairman said, do we want to do this? Do we want to remember this? And I said, yeah, we want to remember it. You know, we want to keep it alive as long as we can. So our kids will always remember it. You know, not only the Jewish had the Holocaust, but the Seminoles had a Holocaust, you know. Here in America, nobody talks about the Seminole Holocaust, you know, or any Holocaust that happened to Native people. Yes, ma'am.
When you say that you have a number of existing clans, would you define for me what makes up a clan and how it's delineated?
Okay. The clan system, you know, it's broke down like with different animals. Like I'm a wildcat. My grandfather, he's a bird clan. All together, we're like when I grew up, I lived in a matrilineal camp till I was 19 years old before I ever lived in a modern home. So I lived in Chichi. And I was raised around with my 8 aunts and their husbands and their children. So there was like 32 first cousins in the village. And we're all like brothers and sisters today because all of our parents are gone now. And now we're the senior citizens. You know, I woke up one morning and I'm a senior, you know. And so we're, you know, we lived in it. We lived in it. That's how we, like I'm going to be a tribal judge. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and we never let our children get adopted outside of the tribe. Always the clan takes them back, takes them and raises them. Somebody in the clan will always step up and take those kids.
There's your aunts, they were sisters, and their husbands came to that place, and if they had brothers, their brothers went to their wives'
Right.
place.
And my father never laid a hand on me. If I got punished by my uncle. My uncle was one that taught me to be a good little Indian boy. And he sang all the songs to me. He made sure that we were all, you know, fluent in our language, which was the Creek language. So everybody in that hub there spoke very well. So you can imagine I'm a little first grader and I'm getting on the bus for the first time and I got long hair and, you know, and I got Wrangler jeans and a t-shirt and I smell like smoke. And I don't speak a lick of English. And I go to first grade in Okeechobee and my teacher wants to know who Willie Johns is, you know. You know, they got that roll, you know, Willie Johns, we're here, and everybody's thinking like, oh no, you know, and all the kids scattered, like quails, so that happy gathers all back up. It was rough. It was like taking a bunch of wild animals to town, you know, back with a pickup truck. So I remember those were great days, living in the Cheeky. I do now when I go to corn dance. I get to live in the Cheeky for a week, and that's our church. You know, that's where we do our renewals, and we dance, we use medicine, and we thank God for another year, another harvest year.
What did you call Florida? Did y'all have a name for Florida?
Kanfuski. It means sharp land. You know how it's like a dog leg, they always say? But we always thought it was, you know, we just, our language is descriptive anyway. You know, Creek language is like almost 60% verbs. So when I'm talking, we're in a group session, we're always describing, talking about different things. So that's how it is. You know, it's not like La Florida, you know, place of the flower. We never thought of that. We would never dreamed that in a million years. We would have named it something like the Sea Cow or something. Shark Trail, or probably Anaconda Trail now, right? You know, all the big snakes and lizards down there in Fort Lauderdale. I lined out 7 of them the other day. They were coming, getting ready to cross the road, and I'd pull in my truck and trailer, and flop, 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 flop. I hate them, you know. They don't belong here. Those iguanas. So the buzzards got a nice dinner.
What you described is just typical when I read it is Forever Island and Alabama.
Yeah,
Smith is not.
right.
Yeah, and Land would never, I mean, it just come to life.
Sure. Patrick, he's really good, you know, about telling stories about Native people. Yes,
So you didn't speak English until first grade?
first grade,
And what about your parents? Did they know English?
a little bit.
Not much.
My mom could count though. You couldn't shortchange her.
But you don't really quite have an accent. Just sort of, not much though. So you learned English pretty rapidly.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
We did good. In our education system, we have it now where you take 4 years of Creek. You can use it for your foreign language or your language class. And then what you do is you use English as your foreign language. That's pretty cool, huh? I did that when I graduated from the University of Miami. You know, but they're liberal enough to do something like that, you know, at that time. So I didn't have to learn how to speak Spanish. I got embarrassed one time when I was a kid. My Spanish teacher always said I sound like a German trying to speak. Yes.
Did you get the funds to preserve the Red Barn?
Do what now?
I read in the paper, trying to preserve the Red Barn.
It is. It's now federal registered, and we're refurbishing it. You know, it means it's a red barn. He's talking about a barn that was built back during the early days of the reservation. And you know, do you remember, some of y'all remember the CEE program where?
Let's see, Conservation Corps?
Right.
Civilian Conservation.
They had an Indian group, and they came in there and they built a barn. And it's only about like 75 years old, but it's part of our history, and we were about to let it go, and people rose up, so we had it placed on the registry. I seen another one like it, just like it, and it's in St. Carlos, Arizona, on the Apache reservation, and it was built the same way.
Where is this located?
It's at Brighton. It's called a Red Barn. It's a beautiful barn set in the hammock. And we do tours with it when we do reservation tours. So
How do you book a tour at Brighton?
just come to Brighton and ask for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there, I mean, we've been to the Talkie Museum, but
You
in
can
Brighton,
go
is
through
there-
them too also, but they cost you.
In Brighton, there's a museum, or?
Well, you know, we have a veterans building that we just built, and we're real proud of it. And it's in the form of a star. And each point of the star is all the branches of service. See, this time yesterday I was at McNeil giving the same talk, but there was like colonels and generals all sitting there, and I would get intimidated with them. You know, I tell them, "I'm glad y'all weren't around. You would have ended the war real fast with your airplane." But then you got to remember, Kitty Hawk wasn't even around yet, you know. So.
Do you still write in your language, or Are there
We do. We,
Publishings?
you know, writing really didn't start till after the missionaries got a hold of us in Oklahoma. You know, and they wanted to write hymns, write passages, so that somebody that got saved, a native person, they could have a book to read to their families and such. So it drifted down into Florida. Here recently, we started Southern Dialect Creek with the University of Florida linguistic people. And so we also have a book. But pretty much the same, you know. They sound like Georgia people when they talk, you know. With the Creek language, you know, it's kind of funny. But, you know, here in Florida, we have a drawl. We talk like Texans with our language. Yes, sir.
I hear the University of Florida all the time, connection with the tribe. How much state connected? I know they're connected with the team, but how about education?
Education?
Yeah.
We're really connected with the state because we, throughout our reservation, you know, with our gaming monies, we were allowed to do charter schools on the reservations because our kids weren't mixing too good, so we kept them on the res. That's why I was brought up too, on the res, you know, with my own. And we teach the language. That's our goal. Above anything.
Tamo, Estango. I'm greeting you in Picture T and Muskogee. How you doing? Great. My name is John Griffin, and I'm invited to tell a story about the people they call the Black Seminoles, Negro Seminoles. A lot of times, that particular part of history is kind of left in obscurity. But let me give the young people a disclaimer about black people. The stereotype that black people won't fight for their freedom, forget about that. There's no white man standing in a tree, jump out of a tree in the middle of 25 black men, beat them up, tie them up, and send them to the coast, put on the ship. Tarzan was not around then, okay? Also, who would jump in the middle of LeBron James, Mike Tyson, and others? Also, the disclaimer I like to give that throughout military history, black men has fought for the freedom of this country as well as the freedom of themselves. In my introduction, I'd like to thank the people who invited me here. I'd like to thank Seminole elders of years ago who took us in. We were black slaves running away from slavery. And I'd like to thank the elders. I'd like to thank the Seminole tribe. I'd like to thank Mr. Willie John in his presentation. But let me go back a few years. Let me tell you who I am. My great-great-grandmother was from a group of people in Hernando County. Her granddaddy came down from a group of people called the Eufaulers. And they settled in an area in Brooksville where they call Chocochatty, Red House, or Red Town, or Wall Town. My great-great-granddaddy took my grandmother to his farm, and he had children by her. On my daddy's side, came from Sylvania, Georgia. His people was called Uchis. So I do have the old blood in my vein even though I'm a black man, also on my great-great-granddaddy's side, he was an Irishman from North Carolina. So I'm all-American. The people I want to tell you about that people named the Black Seminoles, they were black African slaves coming out of Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina. These people that were in slavery actually have been escaping into Florida long before the Seminoles started coming in. The people he called Seminoles. They were escaping into the Okefenokee swamps and living there. We call those people Maroons. They were Maroons. Also, the people that were escaping out of Alabama and Georgia, especially the ones from South Carolina, those people living today is called Gullah Geechee people. Have you heard that name before? The name Gullah comes from the word Angola, and there was a tribe called the Guizi people. So some entrepreneur in that time period thought about let's rice planting business. And they thought about these people in West Africa in Sierra Leone were rice producers. They brought these African slaves here, and the coast of South Carolina pretty much had the same climate as West Africa, so they brought these people from Angola to start the rice business. But later on, these people in South Carolina, as well as Georgia and Alabama, they heard that the Spanish government was opening a way up for Native Americans to come over into Florida, and African slaves who wanted to come over into Florida, abide by their rules, accept Catholicism as their religion, and work for their own enterprise and ways. So their slaves heard about that, so they started escaping into Florida. The ones in Georgia and Alabama started coming over, across the border. They started coming to St. Augustine and other places, and the ones from South Carolina started coming over. Now, it's been mentioned about Abraham. I've known people from South Carolina say that he came from the Gullah Geechee people. Now, when we think of warlike people, there were tribes in Africa, and their descendants came to this southern part of the country from the Shantai tribe, the Igbo tribe, and we have people all the way from Sierra Leone, we have people from Angola, and these people were warrior-like people. Now, to get a man in slavery and to beat him down physically and psychologically, where he did not feel he had even a chance of fighting, then that's a pretty precarious situation. But the old spirit of being warriors came out in some of these men. They say, we will not be slaves, we will not be treated like animals. If the opportunity comes for us to be free, we are going where the freedom is offered to us. So those men escaped into Florida, and when they came to Florida, there were a group of Muskogee people, some Miccosukee people were here that the Spanish had welcomed in, and the Spanish had given them land, given them arms, and told them they could live in Spanish Florida. Then when the blacks came in, the blacks came in contact with the people we call Seminoles, and the Seminole people took them in, gave them refuge. For some reason or another, the Seminoles had a heart for these black slaves. They took them in. Some of the black slaves lived close to the Seminoles, some of them lived with the Seminoles, and a large amount of them lived far from the Seminoles. Do we have to change the class?
Yes, sir.
Practices such as being so-called Christian people, and also there was a cultural difference. Some of them had kept their cultural learnings they had brought from Africa, they learned from their foreparents, so they lived apart from the Seminoles. But the deal was made with the blacks and the Seminoles. The Seminoles say, well, we heard that you got agricultural skills. Most of all, you know how to speak the language of the white people. You've been around them all your life. You know their ways. You know their actions. Also, you can tell us when you lie, when they lying to us. So they made a deal with the Seminole people, and after a period of time, when we think about black Seminole warriors, it's when the blacks actually, when the encroachment of the white settlers was against the Seminoles, the blacks kicked in to say, well, we will fight with you. The blacks didn't want to go back to slavery. The Seminoles didn't want to give up their land. They wanted to stay in Florida. It was given to them. They had been coming in here for hundreds of years, and they didn't want to leave. And the blacks kept on saying, we want to stay with you because we got a taste of freedom, and we love Florida as well as you do. Now, at a period of time, the blacks started acculturating themselves with the Seminole people. They started dressing like the Seminole people. They acquired weapons, and they made a deal, say, well, at the end of the year, the Seminole people say, give us a portion of your crop. And when the white slave catchers come at you, or slave owners, we'll tell them, you belong to us. You're our slaves. There were tribes in the Southeast who adopted slaves, such as the Salagi, Cherokee people. You had even some Choctaw people had slaves. The whites that convinced them that it was a good thing to go into the slave business. But I believe the Seminole people say, we don't have time to be watching people, or lording or governing over people. They're people like we are. Let them live on the land, and if they want to be in with us and helping us with agriculture or whatever, we'll let that happen. But the conflict came in later on when the slave owners started making treks into Florida to take their slaves back, and that's when the conflict came in. When the blacks was close to the Seminoles and trying to convince the Seminoles, don't give up us to the slave owners. And after a period of time, the blacks and the Seminoles, they started making raids on plantations. They started stealing slaves, they started burning crops, they started burning buildings, and most of all, they started killing white people. That's when it hit the fan. That's when you had a man named Andrew Jackson, who had previously been in the Indian War. He came in and said, well, I'll take care of this problem. I'll send all the slaves back to the plantation, and all the Native American people, I'll depossess them, send them somewhere else. That's when it hit the fan. And that's when people start saying, well, that's the beginning of the Seminole Wars. I've talked to Seminole people say, well, they say it was 1, 2, 3 Seminole Wars. They say it was just one war. And I heard Mitchell Cypress say, we still at war with the United States government. We don't fight the rifles, spears, knives, we fight the lawyers. And they still is a struggle with them. So these black people that came into the state of Florida and was with the Seminoles, and they tried to convince the Seminoles not to give up Florida and not to let them go back to slavery. Now we had black men who were what we called interpreters for the Seminoles. We had some who were war leaders. Most of all, what we'll talk about today is Abraham. Abraham, it's been said that he was a slave of a slave owner called Dr. Sierra up around the Pensacola area. He escaped from him, and somehow or another Abraham ended up where it's called the Negro Port. Andrew Jackson decided that here the British left a port for the blacks to have. The blacks and the Native American people could come there, and it really irked him to know that blacks could be free and have a port for their own protection. Now he did an act that he supposedly shouldn't have done. He sent a contingent of boats down to destroy a Spanish land that a port was on. Now that could have caused some, bad things to happen. Here, Spain owns Florida, and you send a boat in to destroy a port on their land. But Andrew Jackson was that type of man. And reading his history, Andrew Jackson did a lot of things that he was supposed to do. Andrew Jackson had duels. He would call a duel out if you didn't agree with him. But what happened was, Andrew Jackson sent this boat down. They said, well, we're going to destroy this fort, the Negro Fort. They heated up a cannonball and shot it over in the fort. With a lucky shot, it hit the magazine where all the powder, the stuff was stored, it blew it up. And they say that Abraham was there. But sometime or another, Abraham came down in this part of the country. Now you had a chief called Micanopy. Micanopy came out of the bloodline of Sakafi. He came out of the bloodline of what we call cow keeper, up on what we call Payne's Prairie area, where Cain Payne and those men had 1,000 head of cows and horses. The king of all kings. And Micanopy was from that matrilineal bloodline. Now I heard people call Osceola called him a chief, but Osceola didn't come out of matrilineal bloodline. He was a war chief, he was a resistance leader, but he didn't have the same blood title like Micanopy. Micanopy settled in a place where we call today, well, his main place where he loved to visit was called Pelilikaha. And his main village was both of them what we call Okahumpke, or Okahumpka. Now the Okahumpke we know of today is in Lake County, but the actual Okahumpke is located in Sumter County. He would go over to a place called Pelilikaha, and Abraham had set up his camp, a village there, under Micanopy. And they say Micanopy spent more time at Pelilikaha, old Abraham's town, because the Negroes took very well care of him. They took care of him. And they were smart enough to say, well, he is the chief of chiefs, then why not we take care of him? But Abraham was a man of great intelligence. He could speak Spanish, he could speak English, he could speak Hittite and Muskogee. And I've heard people gave him the title of sense bearer. And a lady asked me one time, what is a sense bearer? And I just simply told her, he could make sense out of what the white people were saying, and he could make sense out of what the Native Americans were saying. So he had that quality to communicate with both sides. Now Abraham also was a war leader. I don't know whether you are familiar with what some people call the Dade Massacre, Dade killing, some people say, but it's been said that Abraham was there in that battle. And on that dreadful morning of December 28, 1835, with Major Francis Langhorne Dade and 108 men marched from Fort Brooke on the way to Fort Kane. The Seminoles laid an ambush for them, and you probably heard 105 men died that day on the soldier side. I think 5 Seminoles died that day. But Abraham was a very intelligent man, and believe it or not, I've been finding out that when human beings being put in a certain position, especially a precarious situation, they do things to benefit their family or their group. It's been said Abraham always tried to look out for the black people more so than the Seminoles he was interpreting for us. They even tried to kill Abraham one time. And but who knows? In my studies, I found out that blacks and the Native American people were fighting white people, and it ended up black people fighting the Native American people, ended up the Native American people fighting black people, wherein one group get at a disadvantage and it caused a confusion where they both start fighting against each other. Now here in Sumter County, I don't know how many of you know where Pelilikaha is located. How many know where Pelilikaha is located? Old Abrahamstown. It's right down the road from here. On your way to Bevel's Corner, they are forgetting that number of the highway. If you make a left off 301 and go that direction and come to a curve and go back a curve and come up a hill, that's where Pelilikaha is. I've been on archaeological dig with Dr. Terrace White there for a couple of years, and the property is owned by a man named Danny Coward. Have you heard that name before? Danny Coward? It's all cow pasture now. And matter of fact, when we came by there, we were cutting hay on it there today. And so Abraham was one of the black, what we call black Seminole leaders. We had others. We had men like Caesar Bruno, John Caesar, Cow Tom, Sugar Harry, and one of the most other famous one was John Horace. And the Spanish call him Juan Caballo. We call him John Caraco. And matter of fact, I just came from out in Brackettsville, Texas, where the great-great-grandson of John Horace is still living. His name is Mr. William Dub Warrior. I was a guest out there. They have a parade and have a commemorative parade for the men that died in the battle with the Comanches and Apaches. They were called Black Seminole Scouts. Also, here in Florida, it's been said that, well, the blacks didn't play no particular part in Seminole history. I'm saying myself that they did play a part in their history. I don't care who would refute that. They were together at one time, but they separated, especially in Oklahoma. When the government say, well, we pay you Oklahoma Seminole some reparation money, but when that green line was drawn in the sand, the Seminoles stepped back on one side and say, I'm Seminole. I don't know who you are. They left here together. They were on the council together. But money does strange things to people. Money can divide and conquer people. And I can go on all day, but I'd like to know what question you have for me. Yes, sir.
Where's the landmark to find Belleville's Corner? Is south of the college here? Is that on US 1 south of
301.
Right.
301, Sumterville, going back to Belleville's Corner. I think it's over on that side. We on this side.
Right.
But,
now, what is Belleville's Corner? Is there a store there in the corner?
In Center Hill.
Intersection with the store.
48, about 48.
48.
48.
Okay. Thank you.
Stop sign.
But I've been thinking about going to the county commissioner. They need to put some kind of marker there because sooner or later, if Mr. Coward ever passed, you don't know what kids do. They sell land. And there should be a historical marker there of old Abrahamstown. Yes, sir.
Where is the Sumter County Oklahoma?
I really don't know. A park ranger, park manager at Dave Battlefield showed me on a map and said it's there. Nobody's really searched it out, but it's in Sumter County. Steve.
John, Paul Remus, over on the board at Dave Battlefield, also sits on the board for the scenic byways of Sumter County. And they did a presentation at our last board meeting
Right.
and said they are in the process of getting a marker to be placed at Kakahala, so that there will be something there as part of the 62 scenic byways of Sumter County. And I believe the 28th of January is supposed to be a ribbon cutting for that scenic byway.
Old Abraham's town.
Well, I don't know about the town, but
Yeah.
the scenic byways itself, and that's part of it.
But I got a friend of mine, he was a state senator, and he's friend with Mr. Danny Cowell. And I'm gonna find Mr. Danny Cowell and talk with him because he knows Dr. Terrence White. And if need be, I'll buy a piece of land myself, preserve it. And there's a lot of places being preserved, but what kind of irks me is the black involvement. We always get kicked to the side somewhere or another, but it should be preserved as a black Seminole village. There was other black Seminole villages throughout the state. You know, Buckley was one of town, and a lot of them. But I hate to see the bulldozers and things just covering up history going, because there's a lot of people don't know about the black people's struggle here in Florida. The biggest black revolution in the Western Hemisphere was fought right here in Florida. Not in Haiti or Jamaica, but right here in Florida. The biggest Indian War was fought right here in Florida. They spent more money trying to remove the Seminoles out of Florida than the Apache War, Cheyenne, Sioux, whatever. It was fought right here in Florida. They lost more men. They lost thousands of men right here in Florida. A lot of people don't know that. Yes, ma'am.
So you were raised in Groveland.
I was raised in Groveland.
Did your ancestors have any authentic Seminole items? What did they tell you about your Seminole history? Or were you just raised as a regular African-American person?
There's a place in Hernando County called Twin Lakes. And to tell you a story of my family, my great-great-great-grandfather dressed as a woman. He dressed up as a woman, him and his wife, as though they were two sisters with their kids. They left Lower Peachtree, Alabama, and came down to the Brooksville area. I don't know why is it, and we trying to visualize, how did he know that the early red sticks had come to Brooksville area and established Sumter Campus? We are saying that they knew about the Creek Indians before they left Alabama and knew they were down there. What happened was, when he moved down and lived with the Seminoles. And after a period of time, one of his sons married my great-great-grandmother, Sally. She was Seminole. We got documentation. She come from Alabama. We got that. Also, the house that my great-granddaddy built in 1869, we still got it. It's still there. My great-great-granddaddy was a medicine man. My mom was afraid to talk about it, where how people would come there, our kids would be maybe possessed with spirits, and they're swinging from the rafters, and before they left, they was okay. How he would get
Island in Broward County. It's right on the Dade County, Broward County line.
Let me tell you
And he was
about
a black
this
Seminole,
thing.
right?
Our little group of reenactors, we adopted a name, a clan name. And there was a man named Billy Bowlegs III. And I think his mother was one of the last slaves that Seminoles had. And they were of the Snake Clan. And she didn't have a clan name. And I read they designated her clan called the Little Black Snake Clan. So we just adopted that name called We Are Black Warriors, where you see the word chief means little. So we, the little chief, the Lusty Chito Tuscanugas. That's the way we say it. So this is not a real clan. This is, we call ourselves the Black Snake Strike. And, but Chito means snake. Right, Mr.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't have a clan, and most likely would put you in a year plan. So we thought in this day and time, our last year plan died, so there's no such thing anymore, so we don't regenerate plans, so.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, for you to be in a plan or to be part of the rest, you have to be full-blooded?
No.
No.
You got, your mom
Your mom?
has to have a plan.
Okay. Okay.
Let me interject something. We talking about racial groups. Now, it's an irony that the first woman to graduate from high school, go to nursing school, develop a newspaper, first woman chairman of the tribe. The irony is, her daddy was a white man. It's better than jump. Now you come on today, chairman of the tribe, started a new wave of entrepreneurship, warrior, lost his finger in wrestling alligators, all that. James Billy, his daddy was a white man. And what can you say? These people, what they had to offer, even though they don't have the full-blood quantum, but they did contribute something as a whole to the people. So, I don't know what to say any further to that.
Maybe I have a plan.
Thank you both very much. And you,